Have you ever had someone steal your work? Well, that's exactly what happened to me, and let me tell you, it didn't end well for them. Subscribe if you've ever dealt with a work thief, and stay tuned to see how I got the ultimate revenge. I never thought I'd be the one to say this, but I actually looked forward to my job every day. I worked at Brightstone Tech, a mid-sized software company in Seattle. The office had this incredible view of Puget Sound, and on clear days, you could see Mount Rainier in the distance. We had the typical tech company perks: free snacks, casual dress code, and flexible hours. But what I loved most was the creative freedom I had as a senior developer. I'd been with the company for almost 3 years when everything started to unravel. My team was responsible for developing a new customer relationship management system that would streamline how our clients interacted with our products. The project was crucial. Our CEO had personally emphasized how this could be a game changer for our company's growth strategy. My direct supervisor, Linda, assigned me to develop the core algorithm that would personalize customer experiences based on their previous interactions with our platform. It was challenging work, but exactly the kind of problem-solving I thrived on. For 6 weeks, I worked tirelessly on this algorithm. I'd stay late, sometimes until 9 or 10 at night, tweaking the code and running simulations. I even worked through 2 weekends, much to my girlfriend's dismay. She understood, though. This project could potentially lead to a promotion I'd been eyeing. I kept meticulous documentation of every step of my process. This wasn't just standard procedure, it was how I organized my thoughts. I logged everything in our company's internal project management system, creating detailed notes about each decision, alternative approaches I'd considered, and why I'd chosen specific solutions. Enter James Peterson. James had joined the company about 8 months earlier as a lateral hire. He was brought in with quite a bit of fanfare. Apparently, he'd done some impressive work at a competing firm. From the beginning, there was something about him that felt off to me. He was charming in meetings, especially with upper management, but when it was just the development team, he often seemed disengaged, arriving late to meetings and contributing minimal ideas. One Tuesday morning, I came down with a terrible flu. I could barely get out of bed, let alone come into the office. I called Linda and explained the situation. "Don't worry about it," she said. "Just focus on getting better. We've got the team meeting tomorrow where everyone will present their progress, but James mentioned he's familiar with what you've been working on. He can cover for you." I felt uneasy. James and I had only discussed my algorithm in broad strokes during a team lunch the previous week. He certainly didn't know enough to present my 6 weeks of work. But I was running a fever of 102, so I reluctantly agreed and sent him an email with links to my documentation in our system. "Just stick to the high-level overview in my notes," I wrote. "We can go into the technical details when I'm back." He replied quickly, "No problem, man. Get some rest." I spent the next 2 days in bed, drifting in and out of sleep, sustained by chicken soup and cold medicine. By Thursday, I felt well enough to return to work, though still a bit weak. When I walked into the office that morning, something felt off. A few colleagues gave me strange looks, and Marissa from UX made a comment about the genius finally gracing us with his presence, which seemed oddly sarcastic. I headed straight to Linda's office to catch up on what I'd missed. Her door was open, but when she saw me, her expression was difficult to read, a mixture of surprise and something else I couldn't quite identify. "You're back," she said flatly. "Yeah, feeling much better. How did the meeting go? Did James manage to cover my part okay?" Linda leaned back in her chair. "James did more than okay. The executive team was incredibly impressed with the algorithm he presented. In fact, Jeff from the C-suite specifically mentioned how innovative the approach was." My stomach dropped. Wait, what exactly did James present? "Your algorithm, of course. Though from the way he presented it, everyone assumed it was his work. He went into incredible technical detail, way beyond what I expected from a simple cover presentation. He even had slides prepared showing the development process. My mind was reeling. But that was my work. All of it. I've been developing that algorithm for 6 weeks. Linda's expression softened slightly. I had a feeling something wasn't right. James has never shown that level of technical expertise before. But he was so confident, and he had all these details. Because he had access to all my documentation. I could feel my face getting hot. I sent him everything so he could give a basic overview in my absence. Linda held up her hands. Look, I believe you. But the executive team was really impressed, and James received a lot of praise. Jeff even mentioned this might fast-track him for the senior architecture position that's opening up next month. The senior architecture position. The very role I'd been working toward for the past year. The promotion that would finally give me the chance to lead major development initiatives and significantly boost my salary. I need to set this straight, I said, my voice tight. I agree this needs to be addressed, Linda replied carefully. But tread carefully. James has been building strong relationships with upper management. It's your word against his at this point. As I left Linda's office, my mind was churning. I needed proof that the algorithm was my work, not just documentation that James could claim he'd contributed to or guided me on. I returned to my desk and logged into our project management system. All my detailed logs were there, time-stamped over the 6-week development period. But would that be enough? James could simply claim he'd been collaborating with me behind the scenes. Then I remembered something. During the development process, I'd hit a particularly challenging problem with optimizing the recommendation engine. I'd been stuck for days, trying different approaches that kept failing. Finally, at about 11 p.m. on a Friday night, I had a breakthrough. I'd been so excited that I'd recorded a video walkthrough of the solution on my phone, talking through the code line by line as I implemented it. I'd never shared that video with anyone. It was just my way of capturing my thought process while it was fresh. The timestamp on the video predated the meeting by 2 weeks, and it clearly showed my face and voice explaining the exact algorithm that, according to Linda, James had presented as his own work. I also remembered that our building required key card access after hours and on weekends. The security system would have logs of me entering the building during all those late nights and weekends when I was working on the algorithm. James, meanwhile, was notorious for leaving precisely at 5 p.m. every day. Gathering my evidence would take time, and I needed to be strategic. I didn't want to make accusations without being absolutely certain I could prove them. Over the next few days, I quietly collected everything I could. My comprehensive development logs with timestamps, the video I'd recorded explaining the breakthrough solution, building access logs showing my late-night work sessions, email exchanges with Linda about my progress on the algorithm, previous code reviews where team members had commented on earlier versions of my work. Throughout this time, James was basking in his newfound recognition. He was invited to lunch with the executive team and given a spot presenting at the upcoming quarterly business review. He didn't avoid me, exactly, but he was notably absent from team meetings I attended, always finding some excuse about other priorities. About a week after my return, we had a department happy hour at a nearby bar called the Emerald. I wasn't planning to go. I was still compiling my evidence, and frankly, wasn't in a socializing mood. But Daniel, one of the few colleagues I truly considered a friend, insisted. "You need to show your face," he said. "People are talking, and your absence is only making James's version of events seem more credible." Reluctantly, I agreed. When we arrived, the usual crowd was there, gathered around high-top tables with craft beers and appetizers. James was holding court near the bar, surrounded by several managers from other departments and a couple of the younger developers who always seemed eager to be near anyone with perceived influence. I ordered a drink and tried to blend into a conversation about the latest gaming consoles, but my attention kept drifting to James. After his third bourbon, his voice got louder, and I could hear snippets of his conversation. "The breakthrough came to me in the shower, actually," he was saying with a laugh. "Isn't that always the way? Weeks of banging my head against the wall, and then the solution just appears when I'm not even thinking about it." My blood boiled. He was describing exactly what had happened to me, except my breakthrough had come at my desk at 11 p.m. after days of frustration, not in his shower. Daniel must have noticed my expression because he put a hand on my shoulder. "Easy," he murmured. "Not here." I took a deep breath and nodded. Making a scene at a company happy hour would only undermine my credibility. I needed to be strategic. As the evening wore on, James got progressively more intoxicated and more boastful. Eventually, he made his way over to where I was standing. "Hey man," he said, slapping me on the back with forced camaraderie. "Feeling better? That flu really took you out at a crucial time, huh?" "I'm fine," I replied coolly. "Heard your presentation went well." He grinned, swaying slightly. "Knocked it out of the park. Jeff was talking about fast-tracking me for that senior architecture role. About time they recognized real talent around here." I could smell the bourbon on his breath as he leaned in closer. "No hard feelings, right? I mean, we're all on the same team. Your contribution was valuable. You laid some groundwork that I was able to build on." "My contribution," I echoed, fighting to keep my voice level. "Yeah, you know, the basic framework. I had to completely restructure the approach, of course. Your solution was too linear, not scalable enough, but it was a starting point." Several colleagues were now watching our exchange, expressions ranging from curiosity to discomfort. "That's interesting," I said, keeping my voice level, "because I'm pretty sure the algorithm presented to the executive team was exactly what I developed, line by line." James's smirk faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Look, I get it. It's tough when someone elevates your basic work into something truly innovative. But that's why they're considering me for the promotion, not you. I can see the bigger picture." He patted my shoulder condescendingly. "Maybe you can help with the implementation phase. The grunt work, you know? That seems more your speed." With that, he turned and walked away, rejoining his admirers at the bar. Daniel let out a low whistle beside me. "Please tell me you're not going to let him get away with that," he said. I took a sip of my drink, a strange calm settling over me. "Don't worry, I won't." The next morning, I finalized my evidence package. I organized everything chronologically, creating a clear narrative that showed the development of the algorithm from concept to completion. All my work, all predating James's presentation. I included screenshots, code snippets, and, most damning of all, the video of me explaining the exact solution James had presented as his own. I scheduled a meeting with Linda for that afternoon. When I arrived at her office, I was surprised to find our department director, Michael, there as well. "I hope you don't mind," Linda said as I took a seat. "I mentioned your concerns to Michael, and he felt it was important to be involved." I nodded, grateful that at least they were taking this seriously. I presented my evidence methodically, starting with the original assignment and walking them through each phase of development. When I played the video of me explaining the breakthrough solution, date and time clearly visible, Michael's eyebrows shot up. "This is comprehensive," he said when I finished, "and concerning. The algorithm James presented is clearly identical to what you developed." "What happens now?" I asked. Linda and Michael exchanged glances. "We need to take this to HR," Michael said. "This is a serious ethical violation." But I want to be transparent with you. James has built strong relationships with several executives, including Jeff. This might get complicated. All I want is recognition for my work, I said. And a fair shot at the senior architecture position. Michael nodded. I understand. Let us handle this through the proper channels. I'd ask that you keep this confidential for now while we consult with HR. I agreed, though I left the meeting feeling uneasy. I'd heard stories about how workplace politics could sometimes override clear ethical violations, especially when the person in question had cultivated the right allies. For the next few days, I tried to carry on as normal, though it was difficult. James continued to strut around the office with growing confidence, even stopping by my desk at one point to offer guidance on a new project I'd been assigned. The audacity was breathtaking. On Friday afternoon, I received an email from our HR director requesting a meeting first thing Monday morning. The email was vague, mentioning only a discussion about recent project contributions. James was copied on the email, along with Linda, Michael, and, surprisingly, Jeff from the executive team. My stomach knotted. Was this going to be a fair hearing, or was I about to be painted as the problem, the jealous developer trying to undermine a rising star? I spent the weekend anxious and sleepless. By Monday morning, I was a bundle of nerves, but determined to stand my ground. I arrived at the office early, reviewing my evidence once more before heading to the conference room, designated for the meeting. When I arrived, Linda and Michael were already there, along with Sandra from HR. Jeff arrived moments later, nodding curtly in my direction. James was the last to enter, looking confident until he saw the serious expressions around the table. His smile faltered. Sandra opened the meeting. We're here to address a serious allegation of intellectual property misappropriation within the company. Before we begin, I want to emphasize that Brightstone has a zero-tolerance policy for ethical violations of this nature. James shifted in his seat, his expression now cautious. I've reviewed the evidence provided, Sandra continued, and consulted with both the legal department and the technical leadership team. The documentation is extremely thorough. She turned to me. Would you like to summarize your claim? I took a deep breath and presented my case as clearly and unemotionally as I could, ending with the video evidence that unequivocally showed me developing the exact algorithm James had presented as his own. When I finished, all eyes turned to James. His confident demeanor had completely evaporated, replaced by a sickly pallor. This is ridiculous, he began, his voice slightly higher than normal. We were collaborating on this project. I refined and improved the basic concept. That's not what you said in your presentation, Jeff interrupted, his voice sharp. You explicitly took full credit for the algorithm's development, from concept to implementation. You detailed a development process that, according to these logs and video evidence, was entirely this gentleman's work. James's eyes darted around the room, looking for an ally. Finding none, he switched tactics. Okay, look, maybe I overemphasized my role. It was a team effort, and in the excitement of the presentation, I might have failed to properly acknowledge contributions. Contributions? I couldn't help interjecting. You presented 6 weeks of my work. Work I documented extensively, work I stayed late nights and weekends to complete, as entirely your own. That goes well beyond failing to properly acknowledge contributions. Sandra cleared her throat. James, the evidence is overwhelming. The algorithm was developed exclusively by your colleague, and you knowingly presented it as your own work to the executive team. This is a clear violation of our ethical standards and intellectual property policies. Wirtz James's face flushed red. This is absurd. It's a witch hunt. You can't possibly— We absolutely can, Jeff cut in, his voice cold. And we have. The decision has already been made. The room fell silent. I held my breath, hardly daring to hope. James, your employment with Brightstone is terminated, effective immediately, Sandra said. You'll be escorted to your desk to collect your personal belongings, and then to the exit. Your final paycheck will include payment through today only. James's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. You can't do this. I've brought valuable connections to this company. Jeff, we played golf just last weekend. Jeff's expression was stony. Yes, and you spent most of that round telling me about the revolutionary algorithm you developed. I don't play golf with people who lie to my face, James. James looked desperately around the room once more, before his expression hardened. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, he spat, standing abruptly. This isn't over. With that, he stormed out of the conference room. Through the glass walls, we could see a security guard waiting to escort him. After a moment of uncomfortable silence, Sandra turned to me. I want to apologize on behalf of the company for this situation. It's unacceptable that your work was misappropriated in this way. Jeff nodded in agreement. The algorithm you developed is exactly what we need for this project. It's innovative, elegant, and frankly, impressive. I'd like you to present it properly at next week's executive briefing. I blinked, surprised by the sudden turn of events. Of course, I'd be happy to. And, Jeff continued, I understand there's a senior architecture position opening up next month. Michael tells me you've been working toward that role. Yes, sir. It's been my goal since I joined Brightstone. Jeff smiled for the first time since entering the room. Well, your work on this algorithm makes a compelling case. I look forward to seeing your application. The meeting concluded shortly after, with assurances that my contribution would be properly credited in all documentation moving forward. As I walked back to my desk, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Justice had prevailed against all my fears of office politics and favoritism. 2 weeks later, I gave my presentation to the executive team. It went even better than I could have hoped, with genuine questions and engagement from the leadership. The following month, I was officially promoted to Senior Architecture Lead, with a substantial salary increase and a team of my own to manage. I sometimes think about James and wonder where he ended up. LinkedIn shows he took a significant step down, joining a much smaller company in a junior role. His bio still boasts about his innovative approaches to customer relationship management systems, though now I just find that sadly amusing rather than infuriating. The experience taught me valuable lessons about standing up for myself and the importance of documenting my work. But most importantly, it showed me that sometimes justice does prevail in the workplace, even when the odds seem stacked against you. As for me, I'm still at Brightstone, now leading a team of developers who know that their contributions will always be recognized and valued. And yes, I still document everything meticulously, not out of paranoia, but because it's simply good practice. After all, you never know when you might need to prove that the work you're proud of is truly your own. If you've ever experienced something similar, or if this story helped you in any way, please subscribe to my channel for more workplace stories and advice on navigating professional challenges. Don't let anyone take credit for your hard work. Document everything, gather your evidence, and stand up for yourself. Remember, the truth has a way of coming to light, even in the most challenging circumstances. Thanks for listening to my story, and I'll see you in the next video.